This is Chuck Goodritis of Goodritis Knives, and you're listening to the Bladeology podcast.
We're going to jump into this. That's not how it goes. How does the intro go?
That's exactly how it goes. What do you mean?
Welcome to 102.7 Light FM. This is your host.
How does that? All right.
That's exactly how it goes. We're going to jump into this like we do every week.
All right. All right. We're going to jump into this like we do every week. Welcome to another episode of the Bladeology podcast. We are on this week with our original host lineup, and we are on with a guest. This is the vocal representation of Jeremiah Burbank from PBK Vegas,
Nick Chuprin of NCC Knives,
and Elijah Isham of Isham Bladeworks.
Sick. And we are on tonight with Sam from HEAdesigns. How are you doing, sir?
What is going on, guys?
It is popping. It's rocking. We're on here and we are rolling. We're in good spirits for this. This is going to be an interview of epic proportions.
Agreed. It's going to be major vibes.
We're vibing.
So grab a snack, listeners. Grab something tasty to drink. Make sure it's as noisy as
yeah, 'cause you're
as
not
can
on the
be.
microphone.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you're good. Peanut brittle and windbreakers all the way around, my guy. That's it.
Right.
That's it.
I'm just ruffling my windbreaker in the background.
Yeah. So we were talking before the recording. We jumped into it about 3D printing and 2D prototyping and all sorts of good stuff. But Sam, what's clever, man? What are you working on? What's going on? Tell us a little bit about your past week.
Yeah. So I just finished up some CAD I've been working on for, I want to say, 4 or 5 months. Starting to get interested in mixing up some materials. So hopefully this year will be a little bit of a branching out. You'll see some new product types that we haven't done before outside of knives. And, we'll get into some new materials, some stuff that I've been excited to work in for a while now and kind of explore how we can make it cool.
All right.
A lot of stuff coming out this year.
Damn.
A lot of stuff that, you know how it goes, man. Like you're working on stuff for like years in a silo in like a dirty basement and like the rats are like eating your blueprints and,
wow.
Yeah,
that's my life. I'm living that.
Time to unveil.
Yeah. That's
my Wi-Fi keeps going out because they keep chewing through the cordage.
Shit, man. It's like, whoa, okay. Sam
it's
is
all
actually working
dingy.
in a gulag, so it's totally fine. It's just natural.
Right.
It's totally
just
okay.
don't ask me about my KDR because it's not great.
It's all backwards, my guy. It's all backwards. I think that's Elijah's. That's the mood and space that Elijah gets into when he's designing. It
definitely used to be. Yeah.
It definitely used to be.
Yeah, just like the darkest room possible,
Yeah. Hell yeah.
You just turn on
loom.
your computer brightness on to like 11 and just burn your retinas out.
Sure.
While your pasty skin boils away.
Shit, yeah. Absolutely, my guy. Bunch of half-baked marshmallow man running around this motherfucker.
God.
Shit, I must be doing it wrong then.
Yeah, Nick, you're trying too hard, man. Don't worry about it. It's fine.
I got like 3 monitors and a professional setup and
No.
proper lights connected to Google.
You got Google lights?
No, man, all you need is like a
Google
laptop and a
lights
disk.
and like 1,000 megabyte download speeds.
All you need is a
I'm
2
not
foot
gonna
long
lie.
laptop, man. It's fine.
Like
With
programmable
extension
lights are the
cords,
coolest
like
thing.
30 feet long. Yeah.
Like when I'm doing CAD work, I go, hey, like, thingy, turn on the mood lights, and they go red, and I just feel like I'm in a strip club, and I get in the zone, and I start designing.
Yeah, that's a great mood for design. Like,
Yeah. Truly inspired. That's it.
Candy, can you please turn around? I really need to make sure this blade profile is on point.
You got hits handle ratio, man. That's it. It's all about the ratios.
They all be proportions too.
Yeah, man. Come on now.
I designed this model in the light of
The red shows
peppermint.
you what you need.
That's right. Nothing you don't need, only the important stuff. Only the good stuff. Wow.
Oh no.
Wow.
Jeremiah lost his train of thought. He's like, I don't even know how to follow this.
What train? What train
yeah.
were we on?
The train left the station a long time ago. So, all right. So, Sam, you design knives.
I partake.
You
not
partake.
not as hard as Nick, because that's I
That's
can't
like,
I can't
wow.
compete.
It's
Can't
hard
do things
to.
right. I don't know how to tell you.
It's true.
It's intense. So how did you get into this racket? How did you get mixed
Yeah.
up with all the wrong people?
So honestly, like before I go down this rabbit hole of just monologuing, I do want to thank a couple people, like, and there's a lot of people to thank, man, in the New York, like, tri-state area, let's call it, and beyond. Like, Nick is huge in that. So shout out to Nick, like, for real. Like, me and him were like 1v1ing in the shop for a long time, and a serious help, like, getting things started, because he had a lot of stuff in his brain that I didn't know, and knowledge transfer was never like a thing. So shout out to Nick. Also, just in the New York area, John Gray was huge. Took me into his shop and let me make my own first knife, and I'll never forget that.
Oh, wow.
And then
You've
Andre
been to
Thorburn.
the area.
Yeah, man. And Andre Thorburn in South Africa, he was kind of like a mentor away from New York, but definitely a lot of knowledge transfer there too, just to like get me started.
Andre saw both of us a lot back then. Me and you
Also,
would
shout
sit
out
down
to-
at the shows with a notebook.
Oh yeah, 100%. I literally would take notes when he would talk. Like, it was that serious for me. when I
We'd both take
started.
notes, and then after, because we used to work in the same shop, after the show, we compare notes. Okay, you got the stuff about
100%.
the detent, I got the stuff about the bearings.
100%. And then we would go try it out and like literally ruin everything in the shop. And speaking of the shop, like major shout out to like NJ Steel Baron and literally everybody that was in the shop. Like, they literally wouldn't have had a start without them. Like, I couldn't have done anything. I couldn't have made custom knives without them. Like, they enabled me to like do shit I wasn't able to do anywhere else. So, all right, major shout outs aside. Yeah, so it was interesting because I kind of came into it out of nowhere. I was actually like looking for camping and hiking equipment like years and years ago, and was like in the part of my I'm kind of like a research junkie. Like, when I go and buy things, I kind of consume every piece of content there is on an object before I buy it. So I'm the one who like rewatches those YouTube videos just to see like how something works. And so that's kind of where it started, and went down the rabbit hole of trying to buy a multi-tool. Ended up with like a Leatherman TTI, but I guess it started like way before that, because like I had like Swiss Army knives growing up, and that was like always an interesting concept, just to have like a tool that does kind of everything pretty good. And then eventually like segued into like going to my first knife show. That was like the New York Custom Knife Show. Realized there was just a group of amazing people. Partnered up with some of those people to go to my first Blade show, and Blade show is kind of where everything changed. I'm an engineer by trade initially, and then branched out into other things later on, but ended up meeting John Grimsmo, which I'm sure all of you guys know. And there was a couple small projects that he had in his mind for CNC, and I come from like an electrical and computer science background, so I was able to like literally just ad hoc come up with a couple of ideas for him, and just wanted to pick his brain on like what he was doing, and eventually like downloaded Solidworks and like got my hands dirty with some CAD, and I was like, well, kind of want to make my own thing and see how that goes. And one thing led to another. I did like a 3D print. There's a funny story about the 3D print. We can get into it later. But yeah, and then from there I was like, I want to make my own prototype. I tried to look into like how much it would cost a prototype. I was so broke, it was like not gonna happen. I was like, all right, I guess I'll try to make it myself. And then soon after, everything with Nick and John and NJ Steelbearer and all the guys, and that kind of all just kicked it all off.
Damn. I mean, that's a lot. I mean, Nick, it sounds like you were a clincher in there. I mean, to be mentioned in the same sentence with Thorburn, that's impressive stuff.
Well, me and him met before the Thorburn thing. We were actually in the shop together working before that. That was about like 6 months. Then we Thorburn at the New York Knife Show, I believe. But before that, I don't remember exactly how we got here and how we first met. Before we joined shops, it all started with like a 6-hour CAD conversation and me walking them through the CAD design at a diner.
What year was this?
Sam.
That was early, dude. Like, I do remember that.
I moved out at 17 to go to the NJ Steel. I'm assuming I was 17.
Oh, shit. Okay.
So this was 6 or 7 years ago, or I was 16.
This was 3 years ago? That's insane.
Yeah, it's like 2.5
That was 8
years
months ago? Oh my god.
17.
That's nuts.
Because he wasn't
crazy.
there yet, because I was already at that shop, and then I told
This was before Instagram, y'all.
This is before Instagram.
Yeah, before the age of Instagram.
Is this before the internet?
Yeah.
Is this...
I was at that shop, and I told Sam that they might have available space, and then eventually he went towards that direction as well, since he lived not too far away. But I don't remember how we got to the that day at the diner where we just sat there doing CAD work and ordering very basic food. This was also in Manhattan, so they're probably not happy when I was just sitting there.
Oh yeah, we didn't care at
diner.
all. Oh, I didn't give a shit at all. Like, it was so, like, I'm just going to sit here on my laptop and draw things that probably would get arrested for drawing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, he busted out a 3D at the time was as Equilibrium, and then I was like, that's way too long. Call it EQ. I remember that.
Do you remember when I 3D printed it the first time or no?
Yeah.
Do you remember how small it was?
When it was small,
Like how
and also like the blade to handle ratios are so odd because the handle was giant and then the blade was like super narrow.
Okay, anyone who's a designer would appreciate this. Like, so I do my first CAD ever. I'm not traditionally trained in doing CAD anything. And I go in there and I'm out there like drawing shapes and trying to make this thing fit in the handle. And in my mind, like, I spent like 3 months on this thing and I'm like, this is amazing. It's exactly what I want it to be, right? I go to 3D print it and it turns out all my measurements were in millimeters. So I get a knife that I thought was done in inches. So it's like half the size of what I expected. And it's like this micro knife. And if anyone knows the original EQ, it's like a big boy. It's like a big knife. So I was super disappointed when I got that 3D print back.
Yeah, I imagine that would be a little bit of a shock there. You're like, wait a minute. Not entirely correctly sized.
That's not the only time where I've
Cut
seen you
print.
design something.
It's
and
like, yeah, I
unsize
want to
it
do
right.
protos.
This is later
Y'all killing me,
in,
Tiny.
in the Sam career, but remember those beads he made?
Oh my god, do you remember that? I still have them. Like,
Yeah,
all right.
they're unusable.
Wait, stop. They're not unusable.
Yeah,
They're just usable on a very, very small object.
Yeah, Jeremiah knows the
small.
pain. He's done the similar thing.
I've been there. You're like, no, this looks good on the screen, and then it's like,
He designed a bead and got it cast in China after his first production run, and it was like a third of scale.
nice.
Yeah, I found a really interesting like jewelry maker, and their work was like really, really well molded. And the first like batch were like, it was supposed to be like I don't know, about the diameter of a nickel. And then when I got them back, I think they were closer to like a T6 torque screw than anything else.
Holy
They were like
moly.
pencil. They were like pencil eraser sizes.
Wow.
I was like, well, this isn't right.
That didn't come out correct.
They looked super dope though. Like, it's like the face of it. It looked dope.
Yeah, for that size,
Just
the casting
smaller.
was actually really good.
Oh hell
Like
yeah!
you need fishing line to really braid them on anything.
Right. That was actually the intended use case. I just
Oh,
didn't
there you
share
go.
that with you.
Right. That was actually just for fly fishing. They were sinkers. I get you. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, duly noted. Everybody, make sure you're in the proper measurement. Inches, not, or whatever your chosen measurement is. Just make sure it's correct.
Right.
Before doing batches of it. Now, how many did you make?
I think that was a really small run. Like when I got the size right? Like we're talking about like those are just the prototypes.
Those are just the prototypes.
Like yeah, definitely worked out the kinks there.
Okay.
before.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the whole thing was like 100 pieces. It was like a pretty small run, but it was really cool though because we got to work with some really cool coatings. Like we got to work with like a polished black coating, a polished gold, sterling silver for a couple of them. Those are pretty sweet ones. Yeah, it was a lot of fun to do, and like the people who got them and like outfitted their knives with them, I think they really liked it. It was pretty special. It's like one of those things that's like kind of a small bead, right? But the amount of detail and design work that went into it was like substantial. Like we got into like kind of like these really cool, like the whole idea was like we launched the EQ and the Saber Tooth, and we wanted to do like a Saber Tooth bead. And so like it had like the long fangs on either side that overlapped like the underbite of like a saber tooth. It was just very cool. Like the proportions were all right, and like the mane of the saber tooth was very interestingly done, like kind of stylized. I think they still have a few left somewhere. Some of the dealers picked them up.
Oh, that's neat. Okay. No, I love lanyard beads. Like I have a very small collection of lanyard beads. I'm not a big lanyard individual, but I like the beads themselves. Like I like the look of like a cast bead. Like it's such a neat concept to have something that small with that much detail. I don't think I've ever put a lanyard bead on a knife before, but I appreciate the beads themselves. It ends up being like a Karki thing. Chris Reeve?
Yeah, I think because they remember like. I think they still do it. They still like have them standard. So I think on like my first Chris Reeve one, I left it on for a while.
Oh, what is that knot called? It's just like a twisted. Yeah, no.
I know what you're talking about. I know what you're talking about.
Oh, the little
like
cord thing that's like twisted.
Like a barrel. It's like it almost looks like a barrel, right?
Yeah,
like it looks like a
I'll
straight
just refer to
barrel.
it as the Revis nut. Just
Yeah.
And then you take it off and it like rattles like crazy. It drives you insane.
Yeah, there's actually a
Yeah.
cool fix for that. I think if you hit it with like a little Loctite on the side, it does the job. Or if you don't want it to, I honestly like it as a shaker. I actually have one
There you
next
go.
to me.
Yeah.
Well, this one doesn't shake too much.
Oh,
you
there we
use
go.
the knife a couple times and it just starts falling apart. That's the worst thing. Take that lanyard off. It's like bad jinxing. The whole thing
Yeah,
just
it's-
kind of,
It just the whole thing was actually
It was
just
the
waiting for
glue.
you to take it.
they were just tempting you. They were like, "Oh, go ahead, take the lanyard off. See what happens. See what happens." And then it's like, "Oh, it all came apart."
It's like,
Okay.
it's like when you move into a new apartment and there's just like this red button in the corner and you're like, the fuck does that do?
Like, don't touch that. Don't touch that.
And then you're just like in the corner like finger banging it while like the whole building crumbles around you.
Look, you're welcome to do whatever you want here. Just don't touch the red button, and we're
Don't
good.
do that.
That's it.
Right.
We're totally fine. Totally fine. So you guys are in a cafe or in a diner, and you're rendering CAD, and then you're doing a bead. What's the next? Where does it go? Where does it go from there?
So HEA kind of transforms in a way. So I had something happen in my life that was it was a bit intense at the time. Like my dad wasn't feeling too well, and I was spending a lot of time working, like splitting my time essentially between like my job and trying to get HEA started. And I realized that I wasn't going to be able to dedicate as much time in the shop. So I realized that like I wasn't going to be able to meet the demand of a lot of what people were looking for. And I think Nick knows this. Like I am a perfectionist. Like I look at things very critically. Like I like to have fun, but when it comes to like what we're building, I really like it to have a purpose. And so half-assing it wasn't going to cut it for me. And so it took me about, I want to say a year from when I stepped away from doing full-blown customs to start transitioning things into more of a like design-centric brand where I'm taking the right time to design something the way I would see it, the way I think it should perform, so that customers can really, really enjoy it, find like some real value in it, and bring some like design touches and design cues that maybe are only reflective in the custom market, but bring them in like, I would say in like kind of the low volume production sector, which at the time wasn't actually a thing in some ways. It was pretty novel. to do it that way. And the taking your time thing, I think, is important in some ways as well. Is like to really test something, to really take a look at something and make sure that it checks off the boxes that you want it to check off. And honestly, like after we got that ball rolling, it's been a lot of like listening to what people want and what people are looking for, and finding kind of the overlap between like what's possible, what people want, and what we think would be really, really fun for our community. Because at the end of the day, it's like what we're doing, right? Like we don't do this stuff like just for ourselves. It's really for kind of all of our friends and friends of friends and people that we've met. Because that's what it is for me. It's like I get excited when I go to Blade Show, mainly because I get to hang out with people who I've been looking forward to hanging out with all year. So it's making it for them and reminding yourself that you're making this for them. And are they going to be excited to like use that and like carry that, or even just play with it while they're sitting on the couch watching Netflix? Like I can relate to that. Like I'm just sitting there, and like while the Great British Baking Show is happening, I'm just in the corner going like, you know, like the whole time.
There it is. Great British Baking Show. It's been dropped. It happened. It happened. I've seen it. I haven't dove in there yet. I think you touched on a couple pretty great things, most of which, yeah, I think you're right. I think a lot of times when people are designing and making knives, I think that there's a lot of peer influence, or not influence, but there's a lot of peer acknowledgement that it goes in, where you're like, you know a lot of knife makers, you know a lot of collectors, and you're like, you know what? If I'm not making this for myself to enjoy, I'm making it for them to enjoy, you know? And then seeing the look on someone's face when they're using it or enjoying that object, like whatever it may be. Yeah, I mean, there's a huge amount of pleasure that comes out of that, because you're like, I made that, I designed that. And like my buddy who's also a designer / maker enjoys it, and that's like the ultimate fulfillment of doing that process, which is seeing someone else enjoy it and seeing them smile. Because the community is what it is. It's not some sort of giant corporate, machine juggernaut that just keeps going along. It's really just a bunch of interesting people making cool tools,
Yeah. It's what I liked about it going in was there was a certain generosity of thoughts among people within the industry that I really enjoyed. And it was refreshing to see. Whereas, like, if you look at a lot of like corporate culture, it's very guarded, it's very reserved. It's not kind of putting your best foot forward in terms of like how you want to interact with other human beings. It's not very genuine. And so a lot of the things that I wanted to do with HEA when we kind of transitioned it was make it really focused on the experience. So like I spent a lot of time on the website. I spent a lot of time on making each product feel like it was thought through and like catered to. And even when it came down to like kind of what we did day in, day out, like it was always top of mind. It was always top of mind to like do things the right way, like customer service, taking care of like when customers have issues, like all that stuff just meant a lot to me, because in my mind, I'm like, it's like everything was secondary to like the experience. Like when you have a good experience with a company, or you feel like you can talk to the person who just sold you something, it's not about the transaction. Like no one buys the stuff because they need a thing to cut.
Right.
Like it doesn't make sense in anybody's world that I have 15 knives on my table right now. It just doesn't make sense. Like I literally have decision anxiety when I have to open a package now because I don't know which one to pick up.
Like,
you know?
And
then I'm like,
normal situation.
and I'm
It's a
literally
common problem. It's like, what knife do I carry today?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's literally the best problem though. Like no lie, like I wouldn't have it any other way. Like it's fantastic. But the whole idea is like, it's really like a passion thing, right? Like we really like the stuff and we want our customers to like it as well, and taking care of them I think is a good path forward for them to like actually enjoy it. Like I don't know about you, but like I have like knives that have a connection to the person who made it or the person who designed it, and literally every time I pick it up I'm like, man, I miss that guy, hope he's doing all right. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a little bit of that in like every micro interaction.
No, I think you're absolutely right. There's emotional connection through the physical object. Where you purchase it from, who made it, etc. Just like you said, right? You pick something up, and then it's like you just remember how you got it, or who you got it from, or who designed it. It's again, that comes back to that corporate culture thing. Like, you don't pick up. I don't know that you really pick up anything else exactly like you pick up a knife in the world and immediately remember, oh yeah, I know who the guy who designed this. Like, you might be in a situation where you knew somebody who designed a pair of sneakers, but it's like unlikely. Whereas in our community, most of the time, like, people associate objects with names very easily. Like, oh, I know exactly who that person is, or I know who that designer is, and they can name them.
Right. Like, I don't pick up my MacBook, and as much as I love Apple, I'm not like, oh, Jonathan Ive, what graces you've given me.
Yeah,
like,
it's a bit different. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your minimal laptop and your Wi-Fi connection that's solid as a rock. Like, it's never like that.
It's just not. It's just not. But I mean, like, beads, knives, like pry bars, whatever silly thing that, you're purchasing, whatever it is that comes out of our community, it's absolutely attached to, like, a name and a face,
Yeah. Also, further questions. When did you switch to Mac for doing CAD work?
Whoa.
Yes, is this.
Whoa. Oh, shots fired. Shots fired. Well, according to my Best Buy receipt. When I switched to Mac was 2 years ago. It's around the same time I switched to Fusion. No, more than that now, I guess. 3 years now? 3 years sounds about right.
Using Fusion for a bit. You're using Solidworks at one point.
Dude, that was such a painful transition for me. It's so hard, because I tried to use Solidworks
from Fusion. I was like, fuck this.
Yeah. Wild, by the way, that like I was surprised I even made the transition. It was hard, though, I'm not gonna lie. Like, my brain was so SolidWorky, but after I made the cut over, like, it was, I wouldn't say it's a no-brainer. Like, I think there's some things that are still easier to do in SolidWorks, but I think in terms of, like, looking at the future, like, Fusion's definitely that. Like, and I guess just because of my software background, like, there's certain nuances that I appreciate, like the update cadence and, like, the attention to detail in terms of workflow, and, like, accessibility of files was really important that I think SolidWorks lacked, and versioning was important. All this, like, nerdy garbage foo-foo stuff that, like, probably only, like, matters to a couple people but matters to me. But yeah, totally worth it, even though dear God, is it expensive.
I mean, I don't know. I don't do either one, but I mean, essentially, your interaction with technology comes down to a very finite and few things where you draw the line and you're like, this is what I'm willing to deal with, and this is what I'm not willing to deal with. Yeah. So, I mean, whatever's comfortable, whatever works.
Yeah, that's why I had to, like, get rid of the rats. The rats were really like driving. No. Yeah.
That's the thing. You got to draw that line somewhere, Cockroaches, fine. Rats, too much.
It's true.
That's it. True. One of those will survive a nuclear holocaust. The other one, not that strong. So you got to get rid of it. You just got to move it along, Like, sorry, guys. It's just, there's only so many inhabitants that I can deal with.
Yeah, and is it really quarantining if you're surrounded by rats? Like, I mean, come on. Like, is it really?
No, not really. Other sentient mammals? I don't think so. No.
I don't think so either.
You draw the line at exoskeletons.
All carriers.
Yeah, they're all vector species. That's the thing. You don't know. You have no idea. Yeah.
Oh man.
All right. So you decided to take HEA in a direction, and in there, so we got into the Mac Fusion thing. Help us on our timeline. What's next?
I guess, like, it was like a big deal for me, like the first release after, like, kind of, I wouldn't call it rebranding because it's the same brand. It's just, instead of it being customs, it was like low volume production. It really mattered to me, that transition, like to do that right was important. And so website had to be like well done, like experience had to be well done, the launch had to be well done. And then it was also like very risky because I kind of threw everything into it. Like, I think Nick has experienced this a couple times because we did it a lot when we were in the shop, but like we were really all in. Like I think we put our life savings into our stuff like time and time again. Like, we didn't care. Like, we were like, this is gonna happen if it's the last one that happens, you know? Like, I don't know if Nick can relate now.
I'm still
that's
putting in
true.
everything. I have
that's true. That's true.
I have a 2,000 square foot warehouse for New York City. That's
you're right.
That's after Instagram.
You're absolutely right.
Mine was different. I literally came home from school. You were an engineer. I was my first semester into engineering school, and 4 weeks into that program, I came home and I was like, "Hey, Mom, Dad, I'm out. I'm moving out to Jersey. I'm gonna go be." I
remember that. I remember when you told me about that.
I literally dropped everything. I was like, I'm gonna make this knife making thing work. Like, I have to do it. Like, I have a year to make it happen.
Yeah, man.
We both had sleeping.
Dude, I mean, I was in the same boat for a lot of that, mainly because of just like the responsibility on my family's side was like that was always like a thing in the back of my mind, and I was like, I want to make this work for many reasons, put it that way. But like the first launch, I don't know if you guys remember, was like the EQ, the Equilibrium version 1 and the Saber Tooth at the same time. Like, it was like a dual launch, which is like, first of all, like, for sure, don't recommend it to anyone who's trying to kick something off. Just do one. Just do one. Because like keeping track of both was so difficult, and they were so different, right? They weren't both knives. Like, one was like a kind of a really futuristic, super cool flipper comb, and the other one was like kind of the first of its like profile in terms of like hidden blades. That was like kind of a Persian-esque design. It was just so unique, and I was just like, like, if this is gonna be the only thing I do, this is gonna be it.
Gotta go for it.
So in the meantime, when he was designing the Saber Tooth, I was there alongside him. He's like, I don't know, like, I wasn't confident in it because, like, just for the price point. But he's like, they're asking if I want to go to M390, and this fool wants to go to M390 for a comb that has no edge. And I'm like, dude, you're spending all this money on this thing. You gotta get the price point down. Thankfully, it was a really big success. Ultimately, he went with like S35 yen for a comb. I'm like, dude, you get like 154. Get something that just hardens. Like, it's a comb. And like, he's debating between S35 yen and M390 for a goddamn comb.
So,
like, no.
So one thing that I come to Nick a lot with, and he's been amazing for not like raking me for it, is I'm usually very undecided at the end of a long project. And usually when it comes down to like one or two things, I'll come to him and like he helps just clarify like whether I'm like going insane or not.
That's fair. You need somebody like that.
It's off the wall. Like, should we do this in M5000T?
Yes.
We don't make that anymore.
Damn. Special make it. Roll it just for me.
This is Damascus, but like one of the compounds is actually silly putty, so we don't recommend it for spine whacking through forests.
Well, is it going to be good enough for a comb though? That's the question.
Well, you can anodize it because the silly putty is it's very reactive, in my scientific opinion.
Okay, very good. That's the only way to do it. All right. I mean, you know, blade material is still a big deal. You know, comb or otherwise. It is. So dual launching. Yeah, that sounds stressful. I'm not sure, I guess get it done. Jeez.
Yeah. It was fun though, to be honest. Like, it was exciting and nerve-wracking. The nerves were probably the thing that killed me the most because I've been sitting on, you kind of put this orchestration together, and that one took me, I would say, it was almost a year for the switch. And then like a lot of the design work was already done for the EQ. Because, well, the majority of it, I would say, was done for the EQ because that was the first model I ever did. And then the Saber Tooth was kind of like a net new design. Like, it was a new shape. It was new everything. And actually, I wonder if Nick remembers. Nick, do you remember the first Saber Tooth when I did it as a custom and it looked completely different? It had like a flat bottom and a rounded top.
We cut out the teeth with a bandsaw.
Yeah. Yeah, that was ghetto. that was particularly ghetto. Oh man.
Oh wait, did you see the EQ or the Saber Tooth?
The Saber Tooth. EQ we did on the bandsaw, I think. The Saber Tooth. Yeah, you might be right. No,
the EQ also, you could grind that shape out. No, the Saber Tooth is not on a bandsaw to put those teeth in, and then you took sandpaper and did the shoe shine method to try to polish them out.
Yeah, that was there was a lot of funky things happening in the shop. there was a lot of fun experiments and like, oh, do you remember the time I almost set the shop on fire? Like when I took the
Which time? Not the time. One of the multiples.
we took like that. There's like the heat treat oven had the ceramic plate holder thing in the middle, and I just put it on the table, and I forgot that the table. I forgot that the table was wood.
Just put this here for a moment. That should be fine.
It's a ceramic plate. It doesn't look like it's hot, but it
didn't look like it was hot.
He pulled it out of a 2,000 degree oven, so that ceramic plate was still 2,000 degrees.
Nice.
To be fair,
Like,
I didn't know that.
This out.
No problem.
To be fair, there was a plate there that was metal that was removed. I wasn't just throwing it onto a wooden table.
You're like,
But
I'll
effectively-
just set this here. It's fine. Totally
Right.
fine.
This is okay.
This
Just
is
deal
good.
with it.
This is good.
Yeah. Ceramic and wood, they're really just cousins of materials. They just want to be together again.
That's right. It's rebonding. It's a rebonding
Right.
process. So you guys actually, Sam, you did a lot of this more custom before you really went production, but I mean, you really fabricated a great deal more than I was aware of.
Yeah. I made a lot of stuff in that time when we were in the shop.
Well, if I remember right, you made about 10 customs and 50 fixtures.
Dude, so that was another thing. Yeah, you're exaggerating, but yeah, like I definitely tore. I tore through a lot of material. So part of it was like I was very dead set on learning at my own expense, and I wanted to learn as much as possible, and like the way that I kind of went about it. I'm not sure if I would. If you have the time, take the time. In my mind, I was like, I want to learn, and so I literally tore through materials. Like I would literally tear through things to get like a process. For me, it was more about like nailing that process down and experimenting within it to get better processes. So like fixtures and adjustments and the technicalities is what I was trying to learn, and kind of manipulating things, like documenting them so they were repeatable. You know what I mean? Like kind of like that. The engineering part of me was the deconstructive side of me was kind of taking over. He knows I tore through a ton of material. I tore through a ton of belts. And
we both did. We were there side by side trying different shit because we were both just learning, trying to come up with different shit and sharing our results. Because back then I didn't make a knife either for about 3 months. I just tore through blades, same as you. We were both just tearing through shit.
Yo, what bothered you the most about that time, like in terms of like what we destroyed? Like like what was like the most gut-wrenching, like there's like two things I think that bothered me the most. Like when I thought something would work out and it wouldn't, when it like finally was time for it to come together. For me, that was like the most gut-wrenching. And another thing that used to tick me off was like broken carbide. I don't know why. Like snapping like a threader, like it just used to bug me out, like mentally.
I mean, it's different pieces of things breaking. It's never pleasant.
For me, it wasn't the making. It was the atmosphere surrounding it. Because for you it was part-time. For me it was full-time. I would take a 2-hour train there and live on a couch 5 days a week for 6 months.
It was tough.
So I would live on a couch, wake up, and like what essentially was not, it wasn't the dorm, but it was a 5-roommate, 3-bedroom situation. And I'd go to work and just break shit all day for 6 months.
Yeah. It was a time.
It was a time.
I'd say it was more of an experience.
Yeah, but dude, honestly, like I wouldn't have had it any other way. Like I appreciate everything that happened there because like I learned a lot like in that time, and I think we made like some really good friendships when we were there. And I don't know, it was one of those things, like in hindsight, like yes, it was very challenging, and probably like we probably pushed ourselves a little. Dude, do you remember that time before Blade Show and we were just in the shop until like 4 a.m. every single night leading to Blade Show? Like that Blade Show, I wanted to sleep so bad. Bad.
That's stressful, man.
That's still me today, man. That's just how it is.
Yeah.
But we were like fighting for the grinder, I remember.
Yes.
Oh, boy.
Because at that time there was 2 good grinders and 1 good grinder and then 2 shitty grinders, and we were fighting for the good one.
Yo, the shitty one was really bad though. Like it was like, hey, you want to make something? No, but it wasn't the grinder's fault. It was really the plate. Like it would just warp everything. Like whatever touched it, it would warp. Like it was just not a good day.
I mean, sometimes, so all the milling on the Saber Tooth, you guys, so that's before Nick had anything. You guys were doing that at NG Steel Baron?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Major vibes, man. Major vibes.
Pulling back the clock on that one. Days of future past, huh? Okay. All right. Okay. So you guys are like in here and you're working with, it sounds like debatable tools at best. Not that the carpenter blames tools, but and crunching for blade shows. So Sam, what year was that? What was your first blade show?
The first blade show where I had my own table. We actually shared the table with NJ Steel Baron. They were nice enough to let us have a section.
Oh wow.
I don't remember the year, to be honest. I do remember like everything about it though. I remember I was in like.
No, you were there.
All
I
the
wasn't
pain.
there. That was the first year I did the collab with Rob. So
That's
shared a table
right.
with Rob.
It was, but you did stop by. You weren't a complete jerk.
I still do I walk around Sundays.
Yeah. I sat behind the table the entire time. Like it was insane. And I had at the time, and it was all customs on the table pretty much.
That was before your production run.
That's correct. Yeah, it was really early on, and it was actually right after that blade show that like things had to change. Like I had to like change some things up, because of family stuff and whatnot.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, like we came back the next blade show. I think I skipped that blade show. I don't remember. And then the next blade show I had my own table, and I was like, yes.
Bam.
Like, boom, table, cloth, banner, sexual orgasm sounds. And
that's
then,
how it's
everything.
done.
Like that's
In that order, man. Tablecloth banner, and then boom.
That's the right way to do it.
Uh-huh. Oh yeah, absolutely. Just kick those rats out and you're good, man. That's it. 1, 2, 3.
Not gonna lie, I missed Blade Show this year, man. Like it was. It was such a pain that like I was just like, damn, had some fun stuff planned.
I think you are 100% not alone in the room of people who are bummed that did not happen.
Yeah, Blade Show is an interesting one because it's like really big, but it's also it's not like, it doesn't feel that big after a while. I remember my first Blade Show, I was in awe. I'd never went to like a trade show before, so it was like I walked in the doors and I was like, all these people care about knives.
Yeah, right.
All of them. Like
Every
even that
one.
guy.
Like that guy doesn't look like he gives a shit about knives. Like, no, I guess he does. All right.
Yeah, that's way too many butterflies on your shirt, sir. For you to give a shit about knives. Like and it's like half tucked in and half not tucked in.
Shit, yeah.
And
shit, yeah.
Yeah, because the first Blade Show was definitely overwhelming. Because your first was my second.
Yes,
because
that's true.
Me going to Blade Show was the reason I left school. I went to Blade Show, my first like working folded prototype, and everyone thought it was amazing. It was a piece of crap. Just people were being nice, and I was like, well, if people like it, I'm going full time. I had like delusions of grandeur in my head. I was like, this is amazing.
Right.
I could do this.
That's good though, man.
Gonna
like
own this place in 2 years.
Hell yeah, kid.
all
Pretty
you
much.
bitches will be bowing down now.
Damn. If they had just been honest with you, Nick, you could have had a whole different life, buddy.
I was like 16, delusions of grandeur, like 15 maybe. I was like, everyone likes this knife, and I could do this, and I still have that one. And I look at it like, oh my god.
Be like, yo, kid, this knife sucks. Get out of here.
Yeah, could you
get a
imagine what
job.
that?
I was
Could you
like,
imagine
people
what
are
the
probably just trying to be
interaction?
nice to a kid.
That would have been such a funny interaction. Like somebody just slaps it out of hand. Man, get that fucking friction folder out of here.
Damn.
Like, get the...
It locked. It had a detent. It locked.
What?
It was hollow ground, compound ground. It was ahead of its time.
Damn.
It wasn't just like
Damn.
Jello? Are you sure about that?
Backspacer. Had a carbon fiber, to be fair. 3D pocket clip.
Damn.
Did it have a
one screw in the
lithium-ion
pin.
battery?
Damn.
Did it have Wi-Fi and Bluetooth?
Was it Wi-Fi enabled?
It had that clip on there where me and if you remember, Sam, me and you were both trying to make the same clip work because we thought it was revolutionary. It was one screw in the pin from the bottom.
Right. Yeah. The blind pin.
Yeah,
The blind
it had the
pin.
pin.
You know what's funny? I actually moved away from that. Like, I tried it at scale. I tried it. I want to say 3 times, and I pulled back and I did the double screw, because I've noticed that when you do single screw, no matter how good it is, over time it ends up getting some wobble. So it's just a good security mechanism to just have 2.
I still do one, but I do a 440 screw, and then it snaps into a D-shaped inlay pocket.
That's another good way to do it too. Yeah. I think it's like, I think when people want to, like, I mean, I've had customers come back with like a pocket clip that's been like bent out of shape because it literally like caught on like a forklift. You know what I mean? Like that's like, so like in order for it to be like that degree of durable, I've always wanted to like make sure that, like, you know, there's like 2 screws to just secure it in, even if they're blind from the back. I always like that. I always kind of liked like blind screws. Like there's a certain utility to having them on the face of the knife, but depending on the model, it's nice to kind of mix it up and put them in through the back. It gives you kind of like that clean like look. I don't know why we just got into like design theory.
Yeah, that's fine. Dive in, man. That's totally legit. There's a lot that goes into building these tools, and everybody's got their own style.
Yeah, man. Speaking of style, like I remember like early on, like in the Instagram days, I think it was such a small community. Like I think Isham Elijah was making stuff. Like I remember the sketches from the early days. Like I vividly remember them.
Oh yeah.
Cause like
they weren't really sketches. They were like
they were awesome though. Like in terms of like what was out there when you were putting those out. Like Elijah's definitely ahead of his time. Like without a doubt, in terms of like design language, in terms of the complexity of line work. Like I was like, it's just gonna like, I knew it was like inevitable. I was like, it's inevitable that he's not gonna like come out with like a ton of designs. Like the line work was so good. Like it, I mean, you could just like, if anyone's listening on Instagram, just go scroll back through the pictures. Have you left them on?
Oh yeah,
you left the old like
all those
sketches
are
on?
on
Scroll
there.
through the pictures now.
Yeah.
I'm scrolling through the pictures right now.
Get it done.
Yeah, I'm definitely. Yeah, like
I remember like 2 years ago, I think I went back and like deleted the whole first like year and a half or 2 years of photos.
I'm pretty sure I have most of all the first ones on there still.
Do you really?
Nah, I deleted all the first ones from when I was a collector.
I remember I was like 2013. I first hopped on and it was like nothing. Like Jake Hoback was like the new hotness.
like
It was weird.
But Elijah, you've been like the sketch work was like strong, and I watched it like evolve, and it didn't take long for it to like get more and more like detailed and complex. I don't know, I appreciated it as somebody who was like just starting off like around the same time. Like it was just the line work was fire. Like the continuity from like blade to hand, like you were just doing things that like I always thought of, like this is good design. Like this is
I couldn't do what I wanted to do like with a pen and paper. I don't know, I just couldn't because there was too much erasing. So I was like, until I figured out the CAD program, I couldn't. And I did. And I was like, oh, now I can do this.
There was still some complex stuff, to be honest with you, though. Like there was some stuff that you were doing early on that I still remember. Was like, I remember the first like compound grind that you laid in when you just started the CAD work. And
that was probably from ignorance, not even knowing like how they actually work. I was just like, sure, let's throw some shit in here.
Still cool though. Like I don't know. I think that's where like a lot of like, there's a certain like level of like creative exploration that goes into things, I think, before you have to settle with what's like realistic. And I think it's like
definitely.
that's where you kind of start to like see things that, I mean, your design language evolves, right? Like I think I'm sure you've gone through like phases where you're like, this is out there but it's working, and like other times you're like, this is out there and I kind of want to rein it back just so that it's clean and people get it.
Yeah, you definitely like, you have to reel it back. It's like, is this even like a knife anymore? Like I remember when I first saw your stuff, I was like, oh, okay, this dude's thinking outside the box. Like immediately. With the equilibrium, I was like, okay. Finally somebody's like coming along. It's like not like making like some like just whatever knife.
Yeah, I think I'm starting to realize that like there's what I like to carry and what I see like people carry more often is also changing. And so I've been really
And-
into like the minimalism and like kind of the refined lines and things that really ergos have always been like paramount in everything that I do. And like
Oh, yeah.
I've been like really leaning into that, like the minimalism, the like kind of the longevity of a design and how comfortable all that stuff starts to matter more to me now than I think it did ever before. Like it always mattered, but now it's like there's a couple models that are coming out this year that I'm like, man, like those are going to be like not just like usable and fun to play with, but like they're just going to look good a long while from now. Well, that's the idea. That's you never actually know.
Well, yeah,
think you
longevity
know.
in
Yeah.
design. Yeah.
And most people don't really know what they want either until they see it. So it's up to you to like tell them what they want. Like, no, you want this. This is the new stuff.
There's an element of that. Like I think there's almost like it's like 2 steps forward, one step back, but you're still in that step forward, you know? Like you're still pushing it so that people can kind of see where you want to go or what they want next. But there's also like a element of feedback too that I always liked about like product development, you know? Like you get to make something that like you ever like take a look at, I mean, I'm sure you guys are into like other stuff outside of knives too. Like for me, it's always been like watches and like EDC gear, and tech. And like, there's always like those products that are just like, man, that's like a great balance of like all the little things that I kind of wanted, you know?
Oh,
Like
yeah.
that's like a nice mix of like, you know, I don't know, sub 3-inch folder with this material and like that, you know, style of like whatever it is for you. Like I don't know. It kind of works out.
It does always. It hits at the
Yeah.
weirdest time.
Yeah, like something's in the zeitgeist long enough, and it's like sometimes dictated by consumer feedback, and then it just gets better and better.
Yeah, there's a couple models I think that like with HEA even that like we've been able to like refine over time, and I think that was an interesting exercise. I try not to get too stuck into like a specific design or a model, but some of them like they're fun to revisit after a while. Like the EQ was fun to revisit for the V2. I was like, how can I do this different, but still keep the DNA of the original? And that was like, if you look at the two, like in person, in pictures, I think you kind of lose some of it, but in person, it's like, whoa, that's like a completely different feel for what that shape could be.
Yeah, I get that a lot too. It's like you do something and it's like fully done, and then once it's in metal, it's like totally different. So it's better to like design it better than you could even imagine it being in reality. 'Cause it's like always like, I don't know, like every time it's always like less than awesome. Like no matter how awesome it is, it's like the drawings are always better. 'Cause there's like that possibility of what it could be.
Yeah.
And then it's there, it's like, oh, okay.
But I think that's more for us though. I think that's
Yeah,
like
I
less.
guess, yeah.
It's kind of like when you're waiting on a package, and like
And then you
you're
get
like,
it, and it's like, oh shit, whatever.
yeah, it's like this package. You're like sitting in your living. You're like, this package is going to be amazing, and like you have your pom poms out, and then you get the package. You have to take the pom poms off, of course.
Yes.
And then you cut into the box, and you're like, I like it. Like you're like,
It's
like it's
sufficient.
not. You're right. Right.
Like, all right.
This meets
And then
my
you
most
get a
basic needs.
PM3, and then you're like, this is amazing.
This is goddamn amazing.
Right. I definitely have those, man. Like I have my the knives that I just constantly pick.
Yeah, shout
up.
out to Spyderco, as usual.
Shout out to Spyderco, bro. Like the Chaparral is one of my favorites. Like Delica and Dragonfly are probably up there for me as well, and the Sage and Tie. I don't know why I just listed my Spyderco collection. Anyway,
Shit, yeah, guy. Hell
Like the
yeah.
basic bitch of my collector right there.
Nice.
whoa! Listen.
Okay.
I have two
Whoa.
crickets.
Oh.
You're
from
just
like
you're just adding.
that
Now
are-
you got me.
that are 30
Now
years
you got-
apart.
Now
So
you
like,
got me.
I also
Nice.
have an original Terzola from the original collab year. So
Hell yeah.
gangster.
I'm all about that cricket. Cricket is like full serrated cricket with lightweight handle. Fuck yeah. That's my
Yeah.
business right there.
But do
One
any
of
of you
my-
guys have an Endura 1?
Shit yeah,
So
guy.
I have a full serrated Endura
With the
1.
clip it.
Ooh,
Bam.
To clip it.
With the clip
ooh,
it.
with the clip it.
I actually just found
OG.
pictures of when Spyderco released a black blade, like Endura 4, and I bought a black bladed one and a stonewash blade with OD scales, and then I took it apart and made a black blade OD scales Endura, and I was so proud of myself.
Yeah.
That was a while ago.
I don't know why. Like the OD green for me is like a guilty pleasure color.
It's
like,
nice.
I
it's
like
really
it,
nice.
Dude. I really like that like OD green micarta. I have like a ton of watch straps that are in OD green and like 5 different materials for like no reason, just because I like the color.
It's nice. It's I can't figure it out. It's like a tonal thing or something. I don't know. It's great.
It's also very masculine, I think.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, it ticks that box off. You're like, all right, I got this. It's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm gonna go to war while I open this box of Cheerios.
Somebody's got to do it. That's the thing. People are like, how's this box of Cheerios gonna get open? And you're like, I'm gonna fucking eviscerate it. I'm gonna
you just drop kick them.
Like OD green pocket.
You drop kick them out of the way, and as the box falls, you grab it with your left hand and open it with the right.
Like, do you have a knife? Like, yeah, I have an OD green knife. Like, it's good. Like, I got this. We'll get this box open. We'll get this box open in double time.
Question: why aren't knives on the stock market? Come on. I don't know.
Did you hear about that guy
It's on
that
the
was trying to
brain.
do like collectibles as like a crowdsourcing investment vehicle?
That sounds like
Some guy was like,
just
he's like, hey,
fail.
do you want to be a partial owner of the Mona Lisa and put in 12 cents? And as its value goes up, you make money.
I mean, it's kind of crazy, but honestly, I mean, high art is traded much like that. I mean, people don't really appreciate the art. They just buy it to like hide money in. I mean, we all saw Tenet. We know how this works, okay?
Yeah, I'm
Yet
pretty
to
much
see
going to
that.
time travel and then time travel again,
Right.
and then walk backwards for half the movie, and then I don't want
those-
to
I
give
need
up
to
the
watch
plot.
that for real.
Those airport safes, those are real. They just keep stuff in there, and then they don't pay taxes in them. So they just keep
How
like
hard
$1 million
did your eyes
art.
glaze over in that movie?
Oh my
Like,
god!
how,
Three quarters of the
like,
way through, I was like, I don't know what's going on. I have no idea what's going on. Like
That
this
movie
is
you
just
have to, like,
pretty,
watch
pretty
in the morning.
colors. That's it.
You gotta wake up so early to watch that. You gotta
Yeah.
wake up like before your brain wakes up. Like you
Oh
gotta
yeah, no,
wake
it was.
And then you
total
go and watch
nonsense.
Primer, and it's like everything pales in comparison.
Pretty much. I mean,
Try
Primer.
to explain Matt movie to me. Like
Primer was great. Tenet was just confusing, and you're just
It
like,
was-
none
yeah.
of this makes any sense, guy. Like, sorry, no, like, pass. It's just fireworks.
Wasn't Primer the one where? wasn't
It's
wasn't
like
it
the
one
most
where, like,
complicated time travel movie ever.
I don't know that that's
So-
true.
to be honest with you, like I think after I watched that movie, I looked up to see like if anyone could explain it concisely.
If you look for
Oh,
the
yeah, there was
YouTube
like a-
It's like
videos.
4-hour videos. Yeah.
No, there was an
Explaining it.
infographic. There was an infographic of a guy trying to draw like a flowchart diagram of what happened.
He's like, I got this. So here's the thing. Got my
He's like-
chalkboard. I'm gonna make this happen. You're gonna
He went
understand.
so hard.
Somebody's got to do it. You know, you get confused when you're watching Primer. What's the next step? Swap the scales on your Spyderco, man. You're good. You're fucking all set.
And then you realize you put it together backwards, and you got to go back in time to fix it. And then it's a new plot, really.
It's a whole other thing. It's a whole
it's
other
not,
thing.
It's not Tenet. It's really 20th. It's a sequel.
Right. Right. Exactly. So transferring into production with the EQ V2.
Yeah.
What's the next step after the EQ?
There was a lot of things that happened between I think the EQ and Saber Tooth and the EQ V2.
Oh, the antidote. We
did-
totally skipped over that.
Yeah, so that was actually an interesting, like, the vet. So there's two models that I think were in between. There was the Poison and Antidote, and then the Wingman. The Wingman, I think, was, from a design perspective, I learned a lot of lessons with the Wingman in terms of, like, just because people really like it doesn't mean that people are going to pick it up. The Wingman took a while to sell, and like it was a polar opposite with the Poison and Antidote. I think Poison and Antidote are up there with like the Hunter and like the Falcon in terms of like how excited people were about it, and it was like matched in like how excited people were to get it in hand. You know what I mean? So there was so much design time put into the Wingman, and the Poison and Antidote, and again, like Poison and Antidote were like also like another dual launch. It was like two versions of the same model, but both of them kind of approached completely differently from like a design perspective. Like both futuristic, but one like carrying that pattern into the handle, and the way we were going to execute it was going to be like pretty unique at the time. So a lot of that was like exciting. A lot of that was exciting for me, and like just to try to explore something new. And then like, you know, the Wingman being kind of like the Cybertruck before the Cybertruck, you know what I mean? Like it was like one of those models that was very polarizing, but like if you liked it and you could get behind what we were trying to do with it, it's like, damn, like you'd be hard pressed to find a knife that has more interesting angles.
That's
like,
true.
In terms,
Yeah.
When you look at it from different, it has a stance almost like a vehicle. Interesting stuff, man. Like a lot of like. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say just the Wingman is it. I feel like it is one of those. Like you can see it from afar, and you're like, whoa, like I'm not sure what's going on here, but like it's intense and it's very angular. So I mean, yeah,
Right.
in many ways, I can totally right. You're either 100% in, or you're like, I don't know what's going on here. Like
Right,
I'm just not sure.
And apparently it sparks inspiration for upcoming knife companies to name.
That's right. Yeah.
So
They got in on the naming.
Right.
Go in a little bit though. Explain a little bit about the differences between the Poison and the Antidote for those who weren't.
Yeah,
who don't
so they
remember.
were the shape of the Saber Tooth was always intriguing to me. I think it still is. It's still one of my favorite shapes. Is that rounded, elongated pill shape. So I studied like ergonomics for a while after I got into like designing knives, because I really wanted to kind of like go back to basics in terms of like design language and design theory, and make sure I was approaching it like as much from like an aesthetic and usability perspective as it was like an academic practice. And so if you look into like ergonomics, you can't beat a rounded, approximately 1-inch diameter handle. It's why a lot of broomsticks are that shape. It's an easy shape for people to grip. It's comfortable irrespective of how you initially picked it up. And so that kind of rounded pill shape was very intriguing proportionally, because it fit almost every hand size. Like going down from like an extra small glove to like an extra large glove, like it fit all those proportions and was still extremely carryable. So like there was always something interesting to explore that shape further and further. Even actually this year we're going to have one, maybe two models that are going to like revisit that kind of design language. And the whole idea was like, I wanted to design something really pushing the futuristic boundaries. So that was the first time with the Poison that we did like deep mill lines on a scale to bring out like a design language that was brought in from the blade to the handle. So that was like a kind of like using milling to kind of tie in a theme. I thought it was fun. I thought it was like, it was a lot of fun to do that knife. It was we got a really interesting response because a lot of people like the minimalistic, clean lines of the Poison. And then on the Antidote, and then on the Poison with the millwork, they were like, "Damn, this is something like unlike anything I have in my collection." I was like, "That means a lot." Like that was the whole idea, and that I think was actually a Blade Show launch. I think we did that one at Blade Show. So getting that feedback raw in person was like primo. Like couldn't have asked for a better reception for that model, given how small I was at the time. I was really really like early on.
Oh, that is legit to get that in-person feedback is about 10 times more interesting than over the interwebs.
For sure. You get to see people's reactions. You get to see kind of how they just going through the trend. Like there's something nice about like just giving somebody something in person. Like it's like when somebody ships you a gift, it's like it came from the UPS guy. But like when and like as much as I love Dave, like there's a limit to how my love for Dave.
Right.
Like
there's just so much Dave love you can have.
Right. And then when you have it like the maker gives it to you, or like you're handing it to like somebody who's been like really excited about it, or they were intrigued by the teaser pictures on the internet, they're like, damn, that's a vibe. Like that's pretty cool. And then like people getting behind it that way, I think it's an experience. It's fun.
On the other hand, my Dave is a Brenda, and I call her Mrs. Claus year round.
Damn.
Wow.
Always bringing those presents and getting
Yeah, she always
weirdly.
I get like 4 packages a day.
Did
Throwing in
Brenda
3D
have a
printers.
baby?
Damn.
Oh,
Did Brenda have a baby?
you
Old
sure?
Tupac reference. Never mind.
it's the same mail lady for 4 years, and I've never seen her take a day off.
So when
Hustler.
we'll roll back a little bit when you jumped into production stuff.
Yeah.
How was that? Because I think you were dipping your feet into territories that were more rare for that time
Yes.
than it is now. Because
Yeah.
now it's very just like, yeah, of course, duh. But I think when you were doing it, it was a little, it was new territory. Well, relatively new.
It was relatively new. I would say like, I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't know who was doing it before. Like, I'm sure it was more just, it was challenging because there wasn't really pathways for me to like tap into. And I was very, when you make a transition like that, you go from making everything yourself and all the onus is on you for the quality that comes out, right? And then you kind of transition some of that power away to a third party. But in some ways, like it needs to carry your DNA and it needs to carry your level of attention to detail. And so seeing like where I could find suppliers and partners who can kind of think the same way and fit all the requirements. I mean, I was very particular. So that's actually what took the longest time, was finding a way that we can do it right and do it as a brand, not do it as I'm getting this commission by X company. I didn't care about that. I wanted people to know that if they bought something, and I still feel this way, is that if you get something from HEA, it comes from me. And I stand by it, and I can, like, I'll take care of you as a customer. Because like, it's not, best way for me to put it is like, you get something from a company and you rely on that company for what comes out of there. And everything from like the quality control on the prototyping stage to the final product when it comes out and like it's getting quality controlled and like sent out, and like to this day every product I ship out from the HEA website comes with a note from me. Like it doesn't like and I handwrite the note, and it's a short sweet note. It's nothing crazy, but that means a lot to me because like you could literally buy knives from anyone, but you chose to buy one from me. And for whatever reason that is, some people just like the design. Some people like the interaction. Some people, want to support like something unique. And whatever the reason is, like I appreciate it. Like, and I mean that. I'm not just fluffing. Like it means a lot to me. Because, I mean, I know what it's like to support small makers. Like there's a couple leather makers, a couple knife makers. Like there's watchmakers. Like there's people that I like that I think about it that way because it's your hobby, right? It's not really like I'm not buying a vacuum here,
Right.
like,
Exactly.
I'm not just like fucking give me a vacuum. Like as long as it sucks good, like I'm fine. Which is also a criteria for other things that you purchase, but we're not going to talk about that. But the whole idea is like you really have something that like is designed and really cared for end to end. That's kind of cool. Like even if it's down to like the way that you interact with me, like you get emails from me like letting you know like this is the tracking number immediately when it ships. I don't know, all that shit means something to me. All that stuff matters, because if I was on the receiving end, I would like that. You know what I'm saying?
Right. No, I think that's an absolute importance, and customer service is not to boil it down to that, but it is important. It really is, because you're absolutely right. These are not commodity items. Like you're not like, oh man, I gotta go to the grocery store today and buy knives. Like that's not happening. Like it's like you're choosing to invest in something in some small way. And yeah, if someone chooses you, I mean, it is. It's like I've done that before, where you're just like, I don't know, I dig this, and you're gonna buy it, whatever it is. And getting a note with somebody is it's a very personal thing to do,
Yeah, it's I've always thought about things kind of like from scratch in terms of like how interactions go. So like if you think about kind of like how commerce started, like a lot of it was like it wasn't even purchasing, it was bartering in the beginning. Like people would be like, yo, I got these 4 apples, can I get a bread? And they were like, yeah, bro, I got you. And that's how every transaction went in like ancient Greece, because that's exactly how they talked.
No, that's exactly. That's correct.
100%.
Yep.
I have no doubts. And that was like a thing, right? And then eventually it became like, here's this money with an old guy's face on it. Can I get a bread? Right? And then it started to kind of devolve from there.
It all went downhill. Went downhill.
It became kind of a cold, I guess, because I'm from New York, so like a lot of the interactions let's call them micro interactions you have with like when you're buying stuff, it's very cold in a way. It's like, and especially with like tap to pay, where like I don't even have to talk to you anymore.
Yeah, just don't even look at me. Don't even look at me.
Do not. If you make eye contact, I will literally murder you with a cucumber. Like, and like this is so different, right? Because like the internet's tough to get that connection, get that. So small things I think go a long way, like being communicative and like letting people know like where their stuff's at, and like that, you know, if you need anything, like we're here. And I try to be as accessible as possible through those mediums so that people can like feel supported through like let's call it like a buyer's journey, like the journey that they go through when they're like trying to find your stuff. So like it means a lot to me, and I think hopefully it means a lot to the people on the receiving end.
Yeah. No, I'm you know what? I'm 100% sure it does. Honestly, I'm 100% sure it does, because it counts. Every interaction like that counts. But yeah, so I mean, that's, I don't know, the production thing is just, it's such a, it is a crazy thing, because like you take something that you were doing on such a personal one-on-one basis, and then you change that, like you said, you change that sort of relationship with the design and with the physical object, and it's still you, it's just there's like another aspect to it. And I think making sure that you're still omnipresent in the process is absolutely important.
And I try to get really involved. Like I'm not very hands off. I'm pretty critical. Like it's one of those things that like it's kind of the serious side of things for me. It's like where I really spend time and I don't rush things that aren't correct. We try to push the limits on like what we can do, and to make it as sustainable as possible for it to be reliable and comfortable. And like I think in the time we were like, when we first started, I know it's more commonplace now, but having everything feel good, if that makes sense. Like if you hold a knife without looking at it, does it feel right? Like, does it feel good in your hand? Like, does that matter? Like, do you feel the edge? Like what's sharp other than the blade? Like, you know what I mean? Like, how are you going about this experience? I think Andre Thorburn actually like told me something, and it was a very interesting. In the custom world, this probably makes more sense than in production, but it was always an interesting thing. He was like, do you hear that? Like, do you hear it when the knife opens? And if anyone has a Thorburn, like by your side, like finger it, flip it, see what it sounds like. It's different, and it's on purpose. Like it was just a cool thing. Another, I think it was wow, my brain's blanking. We can move on. I'll think of it in a minute. Another interesting piece of advice though came from Todd Begg. Got it. Nailed it. And he was like, one of the signs of like good design is like, even like make sure you don't leave a part of the knife that doesn't have, make sure you don't leave a part of the knife without it. It was along the lines of essentially like make sure you leave your mark on the model. Make sure you leave it where you can, and make sure it's present. And if you look at his work, it's that way. It really is that way, where like he leaves his mark on every part of it, like whether it's the construction or just like the design intent and like the market it was going for. Like he just like it's giving a shit, I guess, is the best way to put it.
Yeah. No, it's right. It comes back to that knife on the other side of the room thing, right? Like you can sort of see someone handling a knife, or like see a pocket clip, or you could see something, and then you just sort of, you know, get triggered, as we all do, and then you just like, your mind flips through a Rolodex, and you're like, I know exactly what knife that is, and that's because of things like that. The overall features scream one particular person's design aesthetic or manufacturer. You know, you're like, I know who built that, I know who made that, I know who designed that. Like, you know.
And I think the evolution of that is interesting, and that's something that like I think this year going into next is something that we're exploring, is like the evolution of that, the refinement, I would say, of that, so that it can be something that is an everyday carry. It's something that people can really enjoy day in, day out. Like I test my stuff pretty rigorously. Like I just put a teaser picture out today. When I found out we were gonna record this today, I was like, you know what? Let's leak this. And it's of a new model, new product type actually. And so even that I've been carrying for 2.5 years. And literally beating it to death. And to see how it holds up. And it's been in my pocket literally for 2.5 years, and it's just coming out within the next like month.
Okay, that's exciting.
Blurry images.
I love blurry images.
So do I.
My favorite is the DMs afterwards where they're like, excuse me, sir, like your picture isn't loading on my phone. And I'm like,
wait,
like,
what?
You know
dude,
what? Like
just
like,
wait a little longer.
I think you have to go back to Apple, and I think you have to exchange your phone.
Swap that phone out. That phone's broken. You need a new phone. New phone.
Oh man.
Like it's not
a misdirection.
It's not my Instagram, it's your phone. Like don't, you know.
Right.
Just get out there.
By the time they get a new phone, it's like the product's already out, and they're like, "Oh man, it was the phone all along."
Like, damn, see that? These pictures all load now. It's like totally fine.
This is why you needed the 13 and not the 12, you know?
See
like
that? There you go. Yeah. So there. I mean, your models, your designs are definitely, it's indicative, right? Like they're knife across the room. Like it's you can see it and you know exactly that it is yours, right? I can feel comfortable saying that. So I think that you've taken all those advice from all those makers and put it to work, and executed that. Because I definitely feel like, you know, model to model, there's an undercurrent, right? There's a design language that is clearly yours. You know, you can see it and say that's an HEA knife. So that I would have to say that was a success on that part, for sure.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough when you kind of continue on, right? Like you can continue to push the limits of shapes and ergos and at some point I think we want to start pushing it in a different direction. We want to take some of the principles of the design as opposed to just the profiles of design. So ergonomics, usability, like continuity of lines, a lot of that stuff is mattering so much more to me now than I think it did in the beginning. It mattered a lot in the beginning. It's just, again, amplified now that we're like kind of drawing back the curtain and cleaning up kind of the overall aesthetic. I just think it's going to lend itself more to like what people want to do in terms of using their knives and like carrying them all the time and like really putting them to work. It's an interesting kind of fusion between like what we had before and like where we want to go next. It's kind of like those steps that you take to get there. And it's all intentional. And none of it's like accidental because of how much time we spend in the design process.
Yeah, right. You're like, nope, this is definitely happening. This is not overlooked. This is an intense design session. This is happening.
Right.
So you're sneak peeking a new model, which you're saying you've carried for 2 years.
Yeah, a little over 2 years. Yeah, it's been. I've actually also had first time like because it's one of those products where, like, I can actually leak it here so that anyone who's listening to the podcast will know about it first.
Bam.
It's
Exclusive.
It's a new take on a carabiner. So it's a completely new take on a carabiner, and it's the most carryable carabiner and secure one that I found. And honestly, I've had everyone in my circle testing it too, which was kind of cool. It was one of those tools where it's like people don't have to be afraid of it. Like it's something that I can give to like
Yeah, right. You're like, go
family
for
members
it.
and friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, like go beat this to death. Where like if I gave them a knife to do that, they'd be like, oh, okay.
Yeah, like
Be
what
like,
am I supposed to do
sure.
with this exactly?
Right. So it's pretty cool. There's like what was really cool about it is its proportions. It's designed to be as compact as a traditional carabiner, like a traditional key carabiner, like something to hold your keys, but it's like 10x more secure because there's a closed off area that isn't opened up. So if you have a keyring on it, it stays on it. It can hang straight off of a belt loop. You can clip it onto a backpack. It has some cool fusion of material, so there's like an inlay in there. It's just it's very different, and not like you've seen kind of like the industry kind of go towards like the overbuilt like I'm gonna like hang myself off a cliff type carabiner. It's not like that at all. It's a lot more like minimal, thin, practical, and it's like design ethos, and still like carries kind of like that HEA flow in its design. So it's exciting.
Yeah, that is exciting. I think that's a really neat divergence from knives. It's slipping into the gear section. It's a great market, and it's a great problem that everybody wants to solve with something, right? Like everyone's like, I want to have a carabiner. Like I personally went through a huge phase of my life where I was just like, that's it. Like carabiners on the jeans all the time, like
Right.
hanging keys. Like that was the
Zip
thing.
off
I don't
cargo
know.
pants.
I've gone
Zip
through that
off
route. I've designed them, but like all these tactical titanium giant like carabiners, none of them make sense. None of like
Yeah.
keys don't actually
yeah.
fit on them. You have to
Right.
put another ring on them, and they're just huge. I don't understand. I don't
See,
understand. that whole
Sam's just
trend
solved that
concept.
problem. Sam
So that's
just,
what-
he just
like-
walked in here and did it.
I was thinking the same exact thing.
I like
was
the new style of those one-piece water jet ones that are tiny, and I use that on my keys. I connect my keyboard and my car keys with that.
yeah.
It's like 3/4 of an inch long. They're smaller, just one-piece water jet carabiners.
I know what you're talking about. Those are pretty sweet. Like
Yeah,
in
they're like
terms of
$10
their
on
like
Amazon. Those are great. Like those giant,
Yeah.
like the big full-size ones.
Right. Like I never could get behind it because like I don't like carrying a lot of shit that like it has to mean something to me for me to carry it. And like I felt like something like that's already the same size, and I modeled it off of like the carabiners that like we use, like just the regular like ones you buy from your Walmart or Home Depot, and like the proportions of it are like I wanted to do it like in an interesting way though. So like I wanted it to be machined. Like I wanted it to feel premium. It's all 6AL4V tie. It's like durable and like it just had to be crafted, I guess is the best way for me to put it. Like I wanted it to feel crafted. I wanted it to feel intentional. And still practical. Like it's holding keys. Like it's not supporting my weight off of a mountain.
Right.
Like it's not,
Yeah.
it doesn't need to be that. And it also doesn't need to be a screwdriver because I if I'm going to be
It has
screwdriving.
to open bottles at least. If it's not, don't make it.
Oh my god.
Oh God. I love how that was like a thing for a while. And I remember
Everything has
we-
to open bottles, man.
everything
Or
has to
oneself.
open bottles, bro. Like I would go to the toilet and like the toilet paper was opening bottles.
You were like, damn,
And I was like,
this fancy toilet paper popping
I
bottles.
also
like,
thought
in
that was
there.
the
damn, bro.
stupidest trend ever. I've never carried a bottle around me in my life. Everything's a bottle opener if you're brave enough.
A bottle.
And then
is a
I met
bottle opener.
I met a kid in college. I remember. I'll never forget this. Like we're sitting down and like the Mexican Coke. By the way, best Coke ever. Like
Yes.
delicious.
Oh
And
yeah.
Look, man, we're not
We're sitting
advertising
down there.
Coca-Cola products. Don't bring it up.
Don't
Bleep that out.
Hashtag
Okay.
not a sponsor.
Yeah, right.
And we're just sitting there and like there's these 4 bottles on the table and my friend from Kenya he literally grabs the bottle off the table and opens it with his teeth, and I was like, that's the most gangster shit I've ever seen in my life.
I was that kid.
Damn.
I was like, that is a man with no care for his oral health. That is
I used to do that until I scratched my gum, and I was like, no, we're not doing that anymore.
If you just get the angle right, I think, I know you could probably do it. I've never done it. Seems like a stupid thing to do, but I don't know.
It's pretty simple,
Or
but yeah, I don't
You could
recommend
open it
it.
with your fingers.
oh,
That's a possibility.
That's truly
Yeah.
hardcore.
Leverage.
I open
my
it
guy.
with my rusty toenail.
Yeah, that's it. take your shoe off? One moment, sir. I'll get that for you. Just crack that Coke open.
Worry not about that fungal treatment. That's pay
right.
that no mind.
Don't look at that. That's all right. So your carabiner doesn't have a bottle opener.
No, so that was actually
I
an
don't want
intentional thing. Because introducing...
Jeremiah's no longer excited.
Hear me out. So the whole idea was that it was an option to jerry-rig like a bottle opener into it. But when you see it, you'll kind of get a feel for why. It's so rounded. It's so comfortable. It's the most comfortable thing that will probably hold your keys. Like, there's no sharp edges. So, like, in my mind, I was like, I want something that people aren't worried about when they carry it. Like, they're not worried about it puncturing a hole in their backpack. They're not worrying about it scratching up something. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's a roundness, a softness to the object that I wanted to retain. That would be, you kind of lose the design intent when you start comboing things up. You kind of get that Swiss Army effect where, like, the effectiveness of one tool drops as you continue to add things to it. And so, like, I wanted to keep it as, like, when you see it, I think you'll get it. Like, there's a roundness to it. There's, like, a kind of no hard angles look to it. And like, it's a vibe. It's like its own thing.
I'm intrigued. Okay. No, it sounds good. I agree with the more tools you have, the less useful each one of those tools is, because it's true. Like, on a Swiss Army knife, you don't really need all that. You need, like, 4 or 5 good things, and then anything beyond that is totally just like, this is garbage. Like, if I needed this tool, I have this tool, I would just go get this tool.
Right. It's almost like getting it done versus, like, getting it done right. And I think that was cause of a lot of pain when we were in the shop, was Nick and I just trying to, like, fix things with things that aren't meant to be used to fix it. Like, there's just...
Why isn't this working?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like hitting glass with a hammer to realign it, pretty much.
Sure.
Like,
Wait, that
there's a
doesn't
lot
work?
of that.
Or... I'm confused.
Wow.
Oh, okay.
The bigger the hammer, the thinner the glass, the better it works, actually.
Got you. Okay.
I have it on good authority.
So it's one of those squared things, like you're just not doing it enough. You just got to double the intensity, and then you're good.
Right.
Okay. Okay.
Do it harder, sir. Sir, you're not doing it hard enough.
I got it.
That's
All
also a lot of, like, good, like, artistic direction in porns. Like, it's really just...
Just do it harder. Excuse me. Just tap them on the shoulder. If you could just do that a little bit harder, we're good. Like, oh, okay, my bad. I'm on it.
Like these days, it's usually throw money at it until it works. And back then it was, how many random shit can we buy at the dollar store until this works?
Yeah, so we used to make trips. Remember Horrible Freight?
Horrible freight.
Horrible freight. That's great.
It was so bad,
It is.
dude. We would
No.
buy, like, an end mill that's, like, cutting through the packaging.
Depends on what you
It's
need.
like,
We used to also like share, like we used to like, okay, you buy that tool, I'll buy this tool, and like we'll
the
figure out which
1-for-1
one works
method.
better.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
right.
Like I had like wrench sizes, like let's say 2 to 3, and he had like 4 to 6.
Like,
So
this
ghetto,
makes
dude.
the most practice. This is it. Like, this is how we make this work.
Together we can make it work.
That's it. We're all in this together, man. We'll just make this work one tool at a time. Didn't cost
You know
me
what
a
used
dime.
to scare the shit out of me? Like, I used to get so scared whenever we'd use the buffer. Because, like, all the horror
I'm
stories
still
I
scared.
saw...
I still don't let my dad use. My dad's been full time me for 2 years, and I still don't let him use the buffer. He
It's
only
like
uses the buffer like backspacers, but nothing else.
It's so scary, dude. It's...
The only time I know
Like,
knife
after-
makers that died on the job was because of a buffer, and 2 out of the 3 stories is impalation with art. Just made up
Yeah.
a word. But
Impalation?
yes,
Yeah.
impalation.
Impalation, I think, is, like, what happens when you're not tall enough, and then you die because of shortness.
No, that's impalation. This is impalation.
Oh. My apologies, Mary.
Shortness of breath. Your heart couldn't pump enough blood to your extremities.
I actually have that problem now, to be honest. Like northeast, like, winters are not fun, and, like, I don't have good circulation.
Oh boy. All right.
Cold hands and feet is what I'm saying here.
I gotcha. That's what all the gloves and wool socks are for.
Yeah. Man.
Electric socks.
Hell yeah.
Electric gloves.
Plug it in.
I honestly have that same issue, but let's not go down that rabbit hole.
I'm like
Okay.
a damn Glade over here.
Yeah, let's talk about bodily circulation on this podcast.
Yeah,
Let's make it real interesting for
It's
everyone.
got real sexy in here. I'm telling you. It's just got real. Oh,
Yep.
boy.
I'll essentially grind blades until my hands go numb. And I'm like, I gotta do like some jumping jacks, move around, and get the body flowing.
Oh my god.
Hey, man. Whatever works, all right?
Hey, that bucket's cold in the winter.
The knives,
yeah.
the knives are getting made, and that's what counts. All right.
It's true.
So at this point we've gotten really sidetracked, and I think the last
Yeah.
knife we talked about was the wing. I was only like design like 6 or so.
Yeah, we're still early. If
You
we're,
still had
if
the
we're going back
hunter.
to the-
You had the slip joint.
Oh, the Falcon.
Yeah. The Falcon, man. The Falcon was a labor of love. That is a knife that I would not let die. There was a lot behind the scenes with the Falcon.
Are you saying that because I needed to die?
What?
Are you saying that you would not let it die because it needed to actually die, or like?
No, it's because it was so hard to make it. It was so hard to get it done the right way. Like it was
Oh,
such a.
okay.
I had a vision. Yeah, I hate that word vision because it sounds kind of pompous, but it's like I had an idea in my mind on like what I wanted it to be, and it changed so
Steve
many
Jobs.
times. Oh, so I'm dead now. So I'm the dead one now.
So I'm the dead one now.
Speaking of Steve Jobs, wasn't it funny where he was like, you know, like iPads like are not gonna work, and like they worked. Anyway.
This is all broken. It's a terrible idea. Like, you, sir, are
This is
wrong.
awful. And then like bigger phones wouldn't be a thing, and then, like there's an iPhone Max now. Anyway,
No one cares about your shitty Apple products.
oh man, are you still on like a Windows machine? Is that why like you have like
I
this
am
Windows
literally
pride?
like working on a 3-monitor super clocked i9 processing beast.
What's really funny is that your audio cut out like 3 times. Okay, so like
No,
all your
I'll-
cloks and all your
Firing
speed, and you
shots.
don't have enough.
To be honest, I
bandwidth
have
to talk.
I have the well in the background here. I'm running two folders of Fusion, a YouTube video, the Bitcoin stock market, and like a giant Excel spreadsheet that's like 7 years old. So lots happening here in the background.
Maybe you should restart your computer. Maybe you should.
I
plug
can't
it.
honestly. I can't even afford to because of the amount of shit that's open. This computer needed to update like 3 months ago, but it's like you have to close everything. I'm like, no, that doesn't work for me.
Like, no, we're not doing that. We're not doing that.
I'm like
I don't
3
know.
Google Chromes behind because I'm like I can't close these tabs out. Like everything's in process here.
I don't get it. Why don't you just save your tabs using like a bookmark manager? Why
I
don't
have
we just
way
get
too
on
many
IT
tabs
tech support?
simultaneously.
Why don't we just do tech support right now?
Because
Do the
I
tech
need an
support.
IT help, and I have you on the line. It's direct. No, so I actually looked
man.
up. I pulled up the Falcon here because
Oh,
I
nice.
remember there was some things of it that I didn't remember. So what? For being a slip joint, what was the issues of getting this thing made?
It wasn't that. It was I had an idea in mind of kind of getting like changing up the scales, getting that pattern to be right was challenging. Like that jig pattern, it was gonna be the first time like exploring that type of pattern where it's like mimicking almost like a natural hand jigging. There was
I
a
see.
lot of like logistics like that were difficult. Like
I see what you mean because like people don't like. For me looking at it, I could tell what would be the issue here.
Yeah.
So jig patterns are a really random pattern, and
yeah,
CAD softwares aren't good at random. They're good at
Yes.
uniform and right. And
precisely.
I'm looking at it here, you could see each jig is he just kind of hand drew him and like eyeball sculpted him out. Is what I'm assuming you did here because it looks random and not actually.
It is. So it is. Yeah, it is. That was the whole idea. Was like I wanted to get that done right, but it wasn't even just the design work. It was also like the manufacturing was a bit challenging. Without getting into the weeds of it too much, it was hard for us to like get it into a format that I wanted. I wanted it to be like, again, very like. If you ever look at like the back spacer view of like when you look at it down the spine, you get this like marriage of materials that's really interesting. It was also the first time we were doing something where we kind of cut out the back end, like the back 90% of the scale to put on the carbon fiber and titanium overlays. And I wanted them to kind of, a curved rat tail is not something that you find very often in a slip joint. And that was also another really cool design cue that I wanted to like make sure was there. Like that curve in and of itself, the way the top chamfer kind of hits the bolster, gives it like this visual interest without it looking busy. There was a lot of things that I just wanted it to be right. Like, it's a pinch grip. It solved a lot of problems that I had with all the slip joints that I have, where like it's just a pain in the ass to get them out. I hate that. It's the worst. It's the worst. Like, my fingernails aren't made out of like adamantium. Like, I can't rip. Like, it just hurts to open this knife.
Some of the nail nicks and the fullers are like too small, and it's really
So like it was, and all the pinch grip ones. If you ever see like the old pinch grip designs, they're all like kind of awkwardly like half moon shaped cutouts for you to like pinch the blade out. And I was like, well, where do I put my hand now that you put that half moon in there? So it was always something that I wanted to kind of design around and make it like kind of feel cohesive. It was also the first time we did a design that has 3 points in which the knife can be viewed. There's like an open and close for every other knife, but we did a half stop on the Falcon, so it has a half stop. And I wanted for the Falcon for it to have a flow in the half stop. So if you see it in the half stop position, it actually flows from blade to handle in a very unique way. It kind of carries that line from the top end, which I thought was
kind of one of your design points I've noticed over the years. You always design the blade to flow in a certain way in the open and close and positions.
Yeah.
It's kind of something you've carried on throughout all your designs as a focus point that I've seen and noticed.
Yeah, I like it because you don't always, like 9 times out of 10, actually, you don't look at the knife when it's open. You look at it when it's closed. And so like the way it looks like when it's closed is sometimes how you identify it when it's on a table or within a drawer. So I always thought that was like interesting. Obviously, like certain models, it won't make sense. Like the space constraints won't make sense for it, but like there's always like room for like your flair within it. And I think like, I don't know, it's just a fun thing to do, right? It's like a fun thing to like play with that type of shape. And I think Elijah probably spends a lot of time doing the same thing, to be honest. Like from what I've seen, like there's a lot of time spent in that alone because it's important. Like,
gotta have that flow, man. And like you said, close position, the looks of it, and the geometry there has just important. It's got to flow.
I mean, it is true that when you're choosing a knife, generally it's going to be closed, and it's gonna be either, in most cases, pocket clip up, just because it's flat on the other side. That's how I generally put them, and like in my bespoke ass leather EDC trays, where I have like,
we're gonna say pants,
where I just lay them on my
my
pants.
bespoke leather pants.
I was thinking like EDC leather bras is where I was going.
Yes, of course.
Because like the larger the cup size, the more surface area you have for knives.
That's correct. But I mean, in the closed position is right. It's just as crucial.
It's funny that you mentioned that all the knives on my table that have pocket clips are all pocket clip up.
Because
I just noticed that.
If you try to put a knife down, pocket clip down, it's just like teeters left and right, and it's like, oh, that's just gonna end poorly. Like, okay,
it's bad business.
Yeah,
it's bad business, yo.
Yeah, that's not great. You just gotta you gotta perfectly line the 32 PM 3s in your drawer all pocket clip up. That's the thing. Otherwise, if they're pocket clip down, what are you gonna do there? How are you gonna know? You're not gonna know. You gotta know. And the Falcon doesn't even have a pocket clip, right?
Right. So that was another interesting thing, was that it was the first model we did without one, like intentionally without one. And it's just more the knife. Like it's more what a slip joint really is in a lot of ways. It's like put it in the watch pocket in your jeans, like drop it in at the bottom of your keys, like let it just develop its own personality and carry it. And I like that with a smaller knife. Like I like that with just something that's designed to be kind of taken out, used, and put back. Like that's a very much a slip joint thing, if you can think about it. Like it's just like one of those old timey objects, and looking at that with fresh eyes, I think is a fun thing to do.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it, actually. Like you either take it so seriously that you're so worried about it, or you're like, I'm going to take these cues that I like and I'm going to throw the rest of this in the garbage and I'm just going to go with it. And I think that's a good rep of what the Falcon is. It has cues, but otherwise it's a fresh look at it.
And I think you need to think about things that way. Like, I know that there's a lot of like kind of replicating things that have been done, and there's no harm in that. I think there's a lot of like interesting makers that are doing things with like older pattern types, and like think there's something fun about pushing the boundaries of what that means to carry something new. I think that's what a lot of people look for now, to be honest. I think that's what brings new people into like the knife world, is they see something actually new. And even if it's just something that's, I think that's what's kind of interesting now is like the evolution of like, it's familiar enough for me not to be alienated by the idea, but it's new enough to get me excited about it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, there's a happy medium there for sure. And I think you're right, when people on the outside, it's a weird way to put it, like see these objects that we're all obsessing over all the time. I think that there's like very specific ones that draw them in. You know, they're like, oh, that's kind of interesting. Like, tell me more about that. Or like, I'd like to know more. Word bubble. So it's like, you know, that's the thing. And I think you might be onto something with that. Yep.
And it's always like a risk. Like, I know, like, none of this stuff is like guaranteed to pan out. It's more just doing our best, I guess, for us to try to make things that like our community would really enjoy, and try to like make it something that's like accessible. Like, I remember how hard it was for me to save up for my first like $100 folder. Like, I remember that. I vividly remember it. I remember it being like I researched a ton, and like I made an effort for me to like know everything about it, and like even then it was hard. It was hard to like take that plunge for the first time. So making even that process just easier for somebody who's new, I think is a cool thing. It's a cool thing to be like the gateway knife for X person. Like, it's a cool thing.
Yeah. Gotta be somebody's first.
Yeah, I say that a lot about things.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's all part of the process. Like, it's even more exciting to talk to someone, you know, and right, Blade Show is a great place to do that. It's talk to someone who's very unfamiliar with knives and knife design, and they are looking for some tool. Like, I've personally have met that character once or twice at Blade Show, where they're either a new person or somebody brought somebody, and they're like, you know, I have $200 and I've been walking around for days, and this is the money I have allotted to come here to buy a knife. I know this is the place to do it. And they're so overwhelmed. You know, they've seen so much. And at the end of the weekend, they'll end up with something that fits their needs, their wants, and you know, but yeah, it is for most people that first initial knife it's expensive, and there's probably a lot of emotion. I don't even remember what it's like, but there's a lot of emotion in there where you're just like, oh my God, I have to make the right decision.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's
funny.
First
The
bench
last
mate.
decision in the world,
Okay.
like,
Yeah, you're like, I'm gonna fuck this up. I'm gonna fuck this up. Like, oh my God.
and then you buy one.
That's
and you're
still
like,
me.
okay, so what's the next one?
Yeah, right.
Let's restart this panic.
Let's do this over
It's more
again.
expensive.
Yeah, right. Every time you have to up the ante, or else you're not alive. That's the thing. You just gotta.
And then it reverts, and then it's about cheap knives again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is so weird. That is
100%.
so weird.
Yeah, I'm still that way. I think I still like labor over like my decisions. Like, I have a Chaparral, the FRN one, and I like saw the Sun and Moon come out this summer, and I was like, but that one.
That's the one though. Like
but that one. And I've literally been on the fence since. Every time I look at it, I was like, maybe.
What's it gonna take? I don't know.
Oh man. It's
Yes.
always like an adventure.
Expensive knives, right? Cheap knives, expensive knives, and then somehow back to just appreciating cheap knives. But there's always, I don't know, cheap is not the appropriate term, but
Right. Affordable.
You know,
Yeah.
it's a different thing.
As we get off track here,
Yeah,
again,
right.
Knife budgets. What about? We didn't talk about the Hunter.
Oh, so the Hunter was a very cool idea that like
I was gonna say that was a different one at the time. It kind of broke a price barrier of what the import knives kind of were.
Right. So like I think that was the first knife we ever did for $199, and I was extremely excited about the idea because it was the cheapest knife before that was, I think, the Antidote, which was $249, but that came out, I think, like 2 years before that. So it was a long time since we did a knife in that price bracket. And what we noticed was that like people really, really enjoyed it. Like people really enjoyed like the profile of the Hunter, the way the Hunter kind of functioned. It was a lot of people's first entry into a front flipper, so we got to have like that education process as a part of it, but they weren't committed to it because it also had an opening hole. So it was like all these other like little things. It was also, I think, the first model that we did that didn't hide in the handle completely, so that was like a fun design departure. But evolution nonetheless opened us up to like more blade shapes. And so yeah, like like I was super stoked about the Hunter, and it seemed like people really were excited about it as well. There's actually some cool news coming out. I can't leak it out yet, but it will be soon. Hunter-esque related. Something very different. So that should be fun.
Hunter and
there's
titanium.
also going to be
Boom.
That might be my favorite design from you.
the Hunter.
Yeah, I think so far.
Oh, awesome. That means a lot, man.
Something about
Like
it.
it's
It's like the Bowie.
the clip
It's a
points are
futurist
cool,
Bowie.
dude. Yeah, like I like clip
Clip
points.
points are
Like,
great.
I like the bow. I like
I used to
Bowies.
hate
I
'em.
like clip points. Me too.
I used to just
I think
hate
I hated
clip points,
them.
but now I love them.
Still not a fan.
There's like a
Of
delicacy.
clip points?
Yeah,
Like how-
I don't know. I never liked them.
They're very delicate towards the front end, and it gives them like an interesting, aggressive yet functional taper for detail work, which I appreciate because a lot of like my EDC tasks aren't very lumberjacking through a forest. It's more like lumberjacking through Dave's boxes. So it's like it's very adept for that. It's very good at that. It's the same reason why I like Warncliffs, actually. Like I think Warncliffs are probably the most usable blade shape when it comes to actual EDC. Like if you're actually going to use it every day,
sure.
Warncliffs are the vibe. Like they get the job done.
Modified
But honestly,
Warcliffs.
I've been really getting into like in terms of like new designs, the ones that are coming out like later this year, hopefully early next year, is like kind of like really well refined like drop points. Like how do you make a drop point look unique within a profile? That's something very interesting because like drop points have been done since forever, right? But like doing one that's like new and effective, I don't know, it's just a fun design experience to do things like that instead of like the flame where it's like a multi-ground whip shape that's like very, very unique.
That's another great. The flame is rather distinctive. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a cuff soft design, and I've only had a couple of them. I think the flame is probably one of two that actually made it into production where I just completely took the cuffs off. I was like, I'm gonna like, if this is the last one I do, this will probably be a very, very interesting day. Like,
we're just gonna do this. We're just gonna roll this dice and see what happens.
The funny thing is, it was actually
I
like,
remember what the. Oh, that's the one you were designing on live that one day, and I joined and was busting balls about the clip.
about the clip, and I ended up changing the clip.
Yep.
What did you call it? You said it. I don't know. If you made a comment about it being phallic shaped, then I was like, shit, he's right.
Yeah, it says about it. It looked like it was phallic shaped, and like he literally milled in slots, and the end just looked like a dickhead. And I was like, bro, you got to change that.
Nah, son, that's not good.
I mean, it's really good for you to have a pocket clip next to your actual penis that looks like a penis. That way
See?
you remember where your penis is. Like some people forget.
That's
you
what
know?
the tie's for, my
Never
guy.
Yeah,
Appendix
sometimes you
carry.
Shit, yeah, guy.
I'm here. Like it's like in the bottom of a mine.
You're like,
No,
oh,
besides
okay.
this,
Vagina mine.
I don't know how much you want to talk about this, but HEA, it's not a one man show these days.
Right. It's not. So shout out to Carl. Carl he's been like super helpful. Like without him, I don't think we would have been as effective, to be honest, over the past couple of years. He joined HEA, I want to say 2-3 years ago, and has been a major, major help in both assisting on the design side. He's grown into helping out on the social side as well. Like Carl is as much HEA as I am. Like he's literally like, we couldn't do the things that we're doing now without him. So major shout out to Carl.
Okay, right on. Build the team, man.
Yeah, so it's always been like I feel like it wasn't really like about like, you know, shouldering the burden all on my own. It was always about like kind of just getting as much help where we needed it, and like he's definitely helped out a lot, like in terms of just being able for us to take like a more analytical approach also to like the way we design, and like taking concepts and like exploring ideas before they become in the metal. I think is like kind of going back to the whole prototyping thing. It's like where I want to like evolve our design process, because everything's a process, right? Like everything that you do, like if you're going to do it once, you're going to do it again. You kind of want to get better at doing it at some point, right? And so all of that kind of comes into play, and it's always like helpful when you have like somebody else to riff off of that's like still going to be kind of approach the problem from maybe a different angle than the way you saw it. What's cool about Carl is also that like he was a knife guy before he got into industrial design, which was always really cool. So he has like a completely, he sees the industry also from a different angle, and he has a sick knife collection. Like, and it's just a good vibe, you know, like to have somebody who like knows, like it's not just an object to them. Like for them, it's like he thinks about it the same way I do, if that makes sense.
Now, how did you find Carl? Did he find you? Because like right now, I'm somewhat on the search for a third part-time employee.
Yeah. It was actually very unique. Like I wish I had a more repeatable answer. Like Carl picked up a poison at Blade Show, and I talked to him. I talked to his dad, who was he was an engineer, and he was telling me about like Carl's doing industrial design and he's like finishing up, and like it was just a great conversation, and we ended up keeping in touch, and you know, we started to like kind of chat about like some minor projects, and then it just, you know how it goes, like things just snowball. Like when things click, they click, and like it worked out really well. I'm super grateful. I don't think if I like went and tried to find somebody, like I would probably have a tougher time trying to find somebody. But Nick, if you're looking for somebody, I would definitely try to find somebody with ideally somebody that's within like the knife world, so they can have the knife user empathies, like they can understand where people are coming from when they like a design and when they don't. And if not, then just the industrial design route, somebody who's like really into gear. That's another like good place to start. Because that's like the same sensibilities, right? Somebody who cares about what they carry, it carries over into the way they look at design. It carries over into like the way they think about shapes and things that are going to be real. Like there's a lot of like theoretical designers who are like building things that are going to be like, this is an L-shaped building, check it out. I was like, how are you going to do that though? Like how are you going to L it?
What? Like how's that going to work, guy?
Right.
You're like, no, it's L. Elevator goes left to right, up, down.
Just take the L, man. Just take it.
Just take the L.
Shit, yeah.
But Nick, you're a great teacher, dude. I'm sure you can like bring somebody up and do the ropes.
I don't got time to teach people. That's the problem.
Busy man.
I'd like to hire someone who could just do the job, and like, but I need someone part time at the moment, as things are going to be changing heavily. Really soon here. Like that's the thing. But also finding someone local is the hardest part.
Yeah, local's tough. Actually, Carl's out of. We are all remote, so like Carl is out of Massachusetts.
Whoa.
So shout out to Massachusetts.
Whoa.
The greatest state.
I'm telling you.
It's the one with the greatest mass. If you're trying to compare masses.
Yes, this is accurate.
But I need something. Yes. It could work for both remote and not. It's technically CAD work, but I would like someone either who could design all my fixtures and most of the CAM for me. But ideally, if I could find some like machinist or someone who knows enough, like just tinker around on small like hobby machines,
right,
who could run like my machinery or stuff like that,
like a spaceship or something.
Yeah, well, anyone who has like good like CAM experience in I guess Infusion would be a good
Yeah, but
would
no,
be a
like
good
people like
candidate.
that don't exist in New York City.
No, definitely not in New York, dude.
I
Like,
tell
I think
people
you're gonna
I'm
have
a
a tough
machinist. It's
time.
like, what?
Yeah, you're gonna have a
You
tough
make
time in New
things?
York.
What?
You make things?
You
I'm a
make things
social
like,
engineer.
excuse me, do you make coffee? Like, I don't understand. Like, can you clarify?
Can you clarify,
Like,
please?
I make the coffee machine, or I can.
I can't, well,
You machine
Sure.
the coffee into grounds? Is that what you do, sir? Just trying to get an understanding.
sir, I can't imagine
Bespoke
anyone
coffee grinders. I would buy
calling
that.
Nick sir. Excuse me, sir.
I've made parts for bespoke coffee grinder, so I'm halfway there.
Ooh. Did you bespeak it yourself, or did you have somebody bespeak it for you?
I made
Transitional
no,
bespeaking.
I signed off on the bespokeness of the coffee tempers I made.
Sure.
Ooh, coffee.
I want one
that's
that
an
uses a
espresso.
grinder motor.
Yeah.
It grinds your beans in 2 seconds.
Milliseconds of grinding.
Okay. Now we're going off on tangents here and there. Is there anything else you'd like to bring up, Sam?
Nick keeps
Before we start
reeling
doing our
us in.
sign-offs?
Reeling it in.
No, guys, like, this has been great. Like, thank you guys for having me on. If you guys are interested in the Falcon or the Anchor, keep an eye out. Please subscribe to the HEA newsletter and find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at HEA Designs.
Nice. Okay. Very good. Got the social medias. Is there an email that works for you?
Yeah, contact at headesigns.com, or you could just go on the website. Get a hold of me any way you like.
Nice. Okay. Very cool. That's the way to do it. Reach out, get in contact, do the follows, do the feeds, get the socials rocking and rolling, man. Yeah, Sam, it's been a pleasure and a learning experience both twice. I'm looking forward to getting back to the show circuit this year, hopefully. So I would imagine if it happens, you'll be a Blade show.
100%. I still have
Are
my
you going
table
to ice?
somehow.
Awesome. There you go. See.
No, I won't be going to ice, unfortunately. I think my next appearance when I come out of my cave with rats will be Blade Show.
Bam. All right.
I'm actually not going to leave the house until Blade Show.
Oh wow. Okay. Well, that's commitment.
Definitely not. Like, I'm out of the house right now. I'm actually in the street. So
Damn. Remote. Recording remote. All
how you
right.
get
Well,
free
Blade
Wi-Fi.
show should be fun. That's
He sits
gonna be the
outside of a
show.
coffee shop.
That's just
I
on the
wish,
curb.
dude.
On the curb.
I'm just on the street.
Damn.
Just freezing my ass off and, like, teeth chattering.
It's chilly out
Stealing
there.
Wi-Fi.
tonight.
Right. I'm actually at your door, Nick. You have a package?
Is that where my 3D printer went?
Can you let me in, sir?
Excuse
Keep hearing this weird buzzing sound. Oh.
It's the
Good
electric
times.
socks.
Yeah, right.
it's
Everything's all
the
plugged in
electric.
to keep the
Right,
extremities
right.
warm.
I'm all wired in now.
Oh man, good times. All right,
All right,
well,
guys.
it's been a pleasure. I'll start the round. This has been the vocal representation of Jeremiah Burbank, and I'm signing off.
It's Nick Chuprin of NCC Knives.
Elijah Isham of Isham Blade Works. Good night, everybody.
Good night, guys.
I just have an ad that popped up. You never guess whose ad just popped up in my Instagram feed.
Ziba.
No,
Ziba has ads?
Michael Walker is paying for Instagram ads. Yeah, man.
Damn.
It's him milling something out.
That's
For
gangster.
for what? For his
He-
knives?
No, it's if you go on his feed, it's the second post where he's like milling out a bolster.
Yeah, but what's the ad for?
It's just a picture of him milling something out.
So it's just like you should just Michael
he's
Walker. Period. Like look at it, enjoy it, Michael Walker.